Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope everybody has had a great Friday, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Take some time to mentally relax and de-stress from the markets before we get kicking off right again. In terms of the market, we see it close just like slightly, just a schnitzel in the green. And on top of that, we also see a very interesting article that's put out against Palantir. It was probably one of the main catalysts or culprits on why we saw it drop down about 7.5% today, but seeing a little bit of recovery in the after hours. Now, this article does have some stipulations behind it. A lot of people alleging that, hey, is it a type of a hit piece that we saw, especially around Palantir at all-time highs? So we'll be kind of digesting it, listening and taking in some news from other content creators. On top of that, we'll also be talking about a big stock that's really hopped up on the retail kind of trendiness train, BMNR. We've been covering that in some of the other big AI stocks and just kind of alpha stocks that we've been talking about on the channel recently. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. Let's try to hit 30,000 by the end of the year. I can't thank you guys enough. Now, popping up on the screen here, what you see with Palantir at 173. Now, Palantir was kind of consolidating sideways here, just choppiness between this 175 and 184, and you finally saw a little bit of momentum. Palantir breaking out here to about 187. We were talking about yesterday, hey, that there is the potential for testing all-time highs. If we break through that resistance, then $200 in terms of the next psychological resistance point is on the table for the end of the year. What you have today is an interesting article from Reuters that causes this drop here, getting down into this volume spot right here, right at this volume shelf at about 171. Now, in the overnight hours, you see a little bit of a recovery here at 175. Let's talk about it. From a Reuters article here talking about Anduril and Palantir battlefield communication system was very high risk, according to a U.S. Army memo. Now, what it looks like here, what Reuters came out with, talking about this communications network being undertaken by Anduril and Palantir and others, is rife with fundamental security problems, they say here, and vulnerabilities, and should be treated as a very high risk, according to a recent internal Army memo. So they take a little piece here out of an Army memo talking about very high risk in quotations regarding this communications network and regarding this fundamental security in terms of Army battlefield communications. Amit, we know, a big content creator we talked about, before. Always great to see his content because he is really quick to the table. I love just being able to rely on him for some important information. He post this tweet on X here, basically saying that this article leaves out one of the main important pieces of information, that this U.S. Army CIO right here said that the issues were mitigated immediately. So Reuters kind of picks out just the small little piece that sounds good in terms of a bearish type of perspective, and throws that right onto the big interweb, and basically fails to mention that the issues were mitigated immediately, saying that the media would love for there to be issues with Palantir's software. They've tried to use this ideology and political beliefs of the software to bring them down, but have never been able to cite security concerns. Today, it seems like the trial, but whatever situation did exist, was resolved weeks ago. So it's kind of old news that's already been resolved, and you just have this article that comes out today. So very interesting to see right here. Like you said, like I said, you can see that news and different types of headliners can really cause a lot of volatility in the stock. But at the end of the day, nothing really happened with Palantir. And I think that's why we saw a little bit of recovery towards the end here, some dip buying at 175 once a lot of people started to realize this, and Palantir was able to hold the support level here at 173. So if the macroeconomic structure still looks good continuing into next week, I think Palantir, I guess, will get back in this choppiness zone between this 174 and kind of 183, maybe for some time before just gearing up to have more of an accumulation type phase, more of a foundational support before pushing those all-time highs again. That's what I see in the short term. In terms of some of the other stocks we're talking about, BMNR at 56.79. Now, Ethereum does have a course, if you guys don't know what BMNR is, Tom Lee's bread and butter for basically accumulating a ton of Ethereum, this Ethereum treasury. Ethereum has a ton of impact on BMNR's price. Looking at Ethereum, holding quite well here at 4,481, has tested this 5,000 area a few times. There is some resistance there. I think if it can get above that 4,500, sorry, not the 5,000, give above that 4,500 for some time and hold, that's where you're going to see more bullish momentum coming into BMNR regarding the actual individual stock price. Did a good job consolidating today and is holding right here at these high, mid 50s, even above the 55. It's an important zone for BMNR to hold. And what you're seeing here is actually a decent amount of call flow coming in. Looking at just some order flow, look at this $1.6 million call buyer for the 58 call for 1017. That's not that far away from here. And you even have Tom Lee coming out here. Now, we know he's very, very bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but really just reiterating his price targets that for ETH, he's still expecting 10 to 12,000 this year. Now, that could be some crazy moves. That would be a large gap up, especially Bitcoin, 200,000 to 250,000 by year end. We will see what happens. I think for Ethereum to have that type of a breakout, technically, it's got to get over that 5,000 resistance point. Once we see a push above that 5,000 resistance points, that's where I think we get into that more of that price discovery mode. And then BMNR has more of a catalyst underneath it to have the potential to see a lot of momentum. So here we are sitting at these good prices though for BMNR in terms of where the most last local bottom was for this, down here at 48. So 48, this good last local bottom, up about nearly $10 from there and holding at that level. We'll see what happens at this resistance right here. If that pushes through, then the next resistance to touch is at 60 and then 66. So keep those numbers in your head. Talking about the actual stock market updates today. In terms of the broader market, like I said, we do have the S&P 500 that rose about 0.01%. So basically nothing, just closed dead even, you could say, at 6,715. So it's 6,715 in terms of that index point. Still above that 6,700, which, the S&P 500 was trading with some choppiness and trading sideways between the 66 and the 6,700 for some time. The fact that we got a weekend close above that 6,700 point keeps me bullish in terms of still the structure. Now, of course, there can be always opportunities for pullbacks. I think the market is kind of welcoming any type of a pullback as they would consider it healthy at this point. On top of that, you also have the government that is still shut down. Talking about here, investors have been overlooking anxiety surrounding the government shutdown. I don't really care about the government shutdown. And that's just because historically we've actually seen accumulation in terms of the general stock market capitalization during previous government shutdowns. So I don't really care about all the politics of it. I more look at in terms of predicting, how is the market going to react in terms of these politics. So unfortunately, I have to be somewhat, aware of the politics that are occurring. So I have to see possibly how the market's going to be reacting. In terms of that, you do have this economic data blackout. Talking about here, virtually has blocked all Friday releases of the non-farm payrolls report, removing the factor that could lend pressure to stocks. Talking about Federal Reserves. The Federal Reserve is already kind of, and the markets especially, already priced in about 2 more rate cuts for the end of the year. I still think that's on the table, especially with recent data that we've seen. Trump right here, though, threatening massive layoffs and said Thursday that the Democrats have given him an unprecedented opportunity to actual cut federal agencies. And you also have Secretary Scotty B here talking about Thursday that the current lapse in federal funding could lead to a hit in GDP, a hit to growth, and a hit on working America. So, we'll see what happens. A lot of this is a lot of talk. I just wait for the numbers because numbers don't lie. And if we look at some of the other big stocks, I'll talk about on the watch list right here. Like I said, the overall broader indices are still remaining pretty strong in terms of structure. I like it. Above that 6,700 in terms of that weekly close, I like that too. ASTS here, continuing to actually hold at these all-time highs. Now, ASTS had back-to-back double-digit days. That's where I saw some momentum here. Any type of a little bit of a cool off, we see that in the market. That could definitely happen, or I guess this thing will just keep rising. ASTS, I do think at some point does have the potential to be a $100 stock. We talked about it yesterday, of course, with the whole roadmap regarding their actual satellites and what we've seen with the possibility of some governmental contracts regarding Golden Dome. You see Nebius right here continuing to climb at 127, and we've talked about Robinhood before. Oh my gosh, talking about the support that this built at 100 was just incredible. And now you see Robinhood right here at $150, basically going through and just smashing through the mid 100s right here through 120, 130, 140 up to 150. Robinhood has been absolutely crazy. We will see how some of the other stocks actually react. Looking at some of the other stocks, let's talk about SoFi right here. Actually has been beaten down a lot. What I've seen on X, I do have a current position in SoFi, so take that with it's underwater right now, but take that with a grain of salt. Still holding, of course, still bullish on SoFi in the long term, but in terms of around this 30 all-time high area that you see for SoFi, or at this resistance point, the psychological resistance point. So if I coming back down here to about 25, there's actually some strong support at about the 25. One of the big things in key catalysts we've been seeing is, the bears are really trying to be have been holding on to one piece of bearish news that we've seen in their reports. I've seen this on X. The CEO even had made a response about it. So still bullish on SoFi. I think this still just needs to take some time to cool off, hit a bounce here, because the bears have been actually doing quite well beating this stock down. So we'll see what happens with it. Other than that, peace out, take care. I'm going to catch you guys later.